evening, I'm Helga Jansen-Daubia and welcome to Democracy in Action, the show where we talk issues affecting you and your community. South Africa goes to the polls this week in an election that has seen the electorate more polarized than ever. May the 8th, 2019 is arguably one of the most crucial elections since 1994. It comes on the backdrop of a municipal election of 2 years ago, which saw the ANC on a back foot and the DA and the EFF unable to make coalition governments work. What then would South Africa's political elite look like post the 2019 election? And what does this better life look like, which all parties claim they can offer? When we return, Tashreeq Truebody will be in studio with representatives from the Democratic Alliance, the African National Congress, and New Kid on the Block, the Good Party, to talk elections.
My name is Saneliso and my surname is Mutlungu.
My name is Shane Rizikon and my surname is Ndandiso.
I am voting this year and probably I'm voting for EFF. They provide jobs, especially for us, the young people. I'm expecting changes like employment for the youth and free education in varsities and TVET colleges.
I won't say that it's important to vote. Because as I said before, there's no development, there's no nothing. Even now they were here, but they're just gonna keep on promising us, but there's no results. Just vote. But they're coming now because it's 2019. They see now it's gonna be the elections on May. They want us to vote, but me on my side, I won't vote.
No, I'm not going to vote because I'm only reason I'm not voting because it's promises. I don't think it's important to vote. Because if it's important to vote, we're going to live in a other situation, which is in a good environment. So it's not important because nothing is coming our way. It's going to the politicians. That's all. The politicians living in big houses and driving cars, doing all the other stuff I don't want to mention.
I think DA is going to take a Western Cape again.
Obviously, it's the DA, because Patricia de Lille is not campaigning a thing. Because Patricia de Lille has her own party, but we don't see it. We only saw it like twice when she said she's going to open a party, and then when she went to some, I think it's in Kimberley or in somewhere else. That's the only time I saw it on TV. Yeah, Hakuman, whatever. That's the only time I saw it. All I see is DA, ANC, and what? All this other party, EFF.
Welcome to Democracy in Action, a lot of which we will see come alive on May the 8th. But we ask this evening, are voters equipped to make a decision which is very much simplified by making a cross on that ballot? In a matter of hours, it will see the voting stations open, ballot papers have been printed, political parties are vying for your vote, and this evening we're asking to what extent they can deliver on the promises they make. Joining me in studio for Democracy in Action is Faiez Jacobs. He's the Secretary of the ANC in the Western Cape. From the Democratic Alliance is Debbie Schafer. She's also a member of the Provincial Legislature. And from the Good Political Party is Thulani Stewele. A very good evening and welcome to Democracy in Action. I'd like to start off with the Democratic Alliance. It is currently the governing party in the Western Cape. It is the main opposition party nationally in South Africa. We're literally just a few hours before the election. How are you feeling? Are you ready? And do you think that prospects of the polls, or at least the studies, are suggesting that the DA will do good?
Absolutely. I think we're definitely ready. We've done the hard work. We've put in the groundwork that you need to do, and we certainly are confident that we will retain the Western Cape and perhaps grow in the rest of national government.
Some of the polls, though, say that you may in fact lose some votes in the Western Cape, and that there could be a scenario that coalitions would have to really push you over the top to at least retain your threshold around governing the Western Cape. What do you make of these polls?
So we used to having many polls that really paint us in a dismal light. We've proved them wrong in the past. We're certainly going to prove them wrong on the 8th of May. And we think that we are actually on track to actually retaining the Western Cape.
If you don't, what do you attribute that to?
Well, if we don't, it will obviously attribute itself to the voter who's decided not to actually put us in the Western Cape. But we've got a very good 9-year track record, and we think that that is suffice and enough to actually convince the voter to keep us in government for the work that we've done.
Yeah. Why should we vote them out, Faiez, if they have this good track record for 9 years?
I beg to differ. They will give you facts and figures, but if you look at the Cape Flats and indeed Western Cape, it's time for change, it's time for renewal. So that's why we as the ANC are arguing for people to give us, the African National Congress, the oldest liberation movement, a chance in the Western Cape. Because they have failed, the DA frankly failed our people to create safer communities. They failed to deliver on housing.
Isn't that the job of the National Police Minister?
Indeed. Look, the issues on safety and security is a competence that is shared in the province. In this province, they have a Department of Community and Safety. They're supposed to look at the political will of driving down the criminal economy, of implementing. Instead, they're giving contracts to gangsters. Instead, they're putting money on CCTV cameras in the affluent areas and not where it's needed. It's time for change. People want change in the Western Cape. The ANC will bring alternative. We have a credible plan under the President Ramaphosa. We have healed. We have dealt with our legacies and our mistakes. We have been on public record to say the end of corruption, we have stopped that. The looting will stop. And under the President's leadership, we as the Western Cape deserve a better. And so we'd want to be again part of South Africa so that we can also get jobs, also get prosperity for our communities in the Western Cape.
Let's go to Thulani Stewele. Thulani, the Good Political Party, fairly new on scene, though it has a few old faces. Antipat Patricia de Lille, having formed the party after a fallout with the Democratic Alliance and within council. Why should we trust you if you are really just, coming from the Democratic Alliance?
What we're saying, it's politics as usual. DA and the ANC have been singing the same song. As you can hear from now, DA is blaming the ANC is blaming the DA in terms of looking after our people. If you can put 17 million on CCTV cameras only in the influent areas, how about Khayelitsha? Where is the budget for Khayelitsha? We've been sitting here, they're saying, we have grown. Where have they been growing? They have been growing because they've been using, if you can see even their office staff, it's only the white people are in the, on the ground, they just had a fundraising. On the ground, you only find black people and the colored people because it's where they say they're growing because they use, even on their campaign, they've been paying 50 rand to the activists to come out. So really, as a good party, we're coming out to the people, says, we are here for social justice, we are here for economic justice.
I'd like to find out exactly what that means, but I want to just quickly go to Beverly. Beverly, are you fronting people? Are you paying people to come out to your marches while, having white parties for other types of people?
I think that's a ludicrous accusation. As he does know, it is a ludicrous accusation because he used to wear a blue T-shirt. The point of the matter is that actually we don't pay people to come out and be activists. We run a very tight ship in terms of how we run our election
So
campaign.
you don't give people 50 rands?
So we will give people stipends for food if we need
But
to on
that is paying
election
people.
day. On election day, it's not paying people to come out and take a vote. We've got a huge following of DA people that want to be part of the election campaign, and we certainly make sure that we do. And I doubt that that Good Party can sit here and state that they haven't done anything of the same. We all know that people work very, very hard during election time, and you cannot be abusing Labour. We certainly look after our activists, as we should do. They're very important.
How different is that from when the DA who previously slammed the ANC for food parcels? The DA does the very same thing. It gives parcels out with your logo pasted on there, and
No,
now
we
you're
don't
giving
give out
people
food
money.
parcels. We don't give out food
There's
parcels.
evidence of
No,
it.
we don't give out food parcels. We absolutely
So
don't.
what are the parcels with DA stickers on?
What parcels with DA stickers?
There are images that show parcels being handed out with food parcels with DA stickers on
on
them.
election year, on election
Not
day,
on
you
the
say?
election day, during
election
election
day.
period.
Do you mean for a vote? Is that what you're actually saying?
I'm asking, are you buying
No,
votes through giving
We
food
don't
parcels?
buy vote. No.
So how different is that
We
from
look
what the
after our
ANC does?
activists. We look after our activists because they are very proactively involved in our campaign, but we certainly don't buy votes.
Okay, Faiez, you want to jump in there?
Just to respond, I know on election day the DA will be handing out bread and all of those things. We would be encouraging our members, take the bread because we are hungry. Our people are hungry, but vote right.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to say to them.
All right, I want to come back to you, Stewele, just from where you stand at the moment. I mean, what is the good political party? I must be honest, I can't make sense of the name. What are you telling South Africans? What should we understand by good?
You know, South Africa, we've got good people in South Africa. People who uphold the constitution of this country. You know, we should not be sitting with the step capture in the first place if good people that wanted to serve the good interests of our people from the outside. You could see what is when Patricia says, I'm coming out to launch a new political party, which is when we left council. Yes, she's right. I come from the Blue Party, which is I could not stand not to stand on the principle, because you could see it's the white bosses give us an indication how should we do things.
But how long did it take for you to realize it's a white party?
You know, I've been into the party. I've been a councillor for, it was my first term. If I was greedy for money, being a young person, I should have stayed in the TA. It could cover my car, it could cover my expenses on the agreement. Would it cover the people of Khayelitsha? Would it cover the people of Manenberg? Debbie Schafer doesn't know the impact of society, because when she came in for this interview, she was brought by the bodyguard. It means for her, everything with her is being secured. When she moved into the post where she's currently sitting, she was shipped to the position where she was sitting. She has never worked hard in terms of developing our people in the communities. I'll tell you, when you talk of agriculture, we are sitting with the issue now where black farmers don't have even a cut of land, which is they know in the department they've never done so much. So this is a good part. We say, let the public land be used by the public. So as we're coming out as a good party, we say to our people, we can change society. There's a number of NGOs in the community. Even this, I can tell you, Cape Town TV, Radio Zibonele, those kind of stations can be in the upper market if our government does put money in the Western Cape.
Yeah, I want to let's then delve into some policy matters. And I want to come back to you, Beverly, again. I know this perhaps is a matter of government, but I'd like a party response as well to this. And it came from Stewele a bit earlier that in Khayelitsha, there aren't any cameras going up. I mean, there was a commission of inquiry that highlighted the role of CCTV cameras in combating crime. Yet none of those, or the recent allocation of money that was made available, is going for cameras in a place like Khayelitsha. Why not?
You know, again, and you're asking me to find out exactly how many cameras are in Khayelitsha. I won't be able to tell you, but what I
That's
can
not what
tell
I'm asking. I'm asking you why are money not going for.
No, and I don't believe that that is actually happening. Again, it is skewed and misinformation that's going out here by good. First of all, Khayelitsha's got shot spotters. They've got shot spotters to actually track shooting wherever it's happening. They have community watch programs. If there is cameras, there will be cameras. And I wouldn't be able to tell you where, but there is no, in my opinion, there is no evidence to state that cameras is used as a white, race-based, residential problem to solving crime. We know that that's not true. We know that the city is inundated with cameras, but cameras isn't the only solution. We are failing the people because our police services have failed the people. We are hugely under-resourced in the Western Cape, and we certainly need to get those numbers up. Having a camera without a man behind watching the camera is not going to be able to do anything. Having a camera, watching the camera, and then not getting the police to react is certainly not going to do anything either. So we need to be clear with the information that we're giving to the public. We cannot tell the public here that cameras is the only intervention that should be done in Khayelitsha to combat crime. There's a far bigger whole of society approach that has to happen in order to combat crime, and it starts with the under-resourcing of police.
I don't think anybody would disagree with you. The problem still is there is no allocation in the recent spend that's going to Khayelitsha. How do you justify that? I mean, you respond by saying shot spotter. It's been rolled out in places like Hanover Park as well, and there we've seen, in fact, trends haven't changed much. So can you answer to why there's been no allocation for Khayelitsha on cameras?
I can't give you an answer why you state that there's no allocation for cameras in Khayelitsha, but I can state again that Khayelitsha, Nyanga, Langa, Gugulethu, all of them, is not just Khayelitsha we're talking about. We're talking about areas of crime that need to be attended to and dealt with at a police level. It doesn't matter if you've got the technology, but if you don't have the police resources, we're not going to solve the crime issue.
Yeah.
And that's what we must let the
Perhaps,
public know
and I'll go
about.
to, I see your opponents want to respond. I think the principle of the matter that's being raised here is the following, that, you know, we spend money on fixing up the promenade in Sea Point and the wall that, yes, rightfully must be fixed up, but we are able to find millions of rand to spend on that, but we can't fix the potholes in Khayelitsha, we can't provide proper pavements, we can't provide proper pathways for emergency vehicles and things to go in there. I think that is the principal issue that's being raised here, is that there seems to be a prioritization of other aspects of development instead of those townships where it is so sorely needed.
I just want to put the facts out here. Both the City of Cape Town and provincial government are more than 60% of their budget is spent on pro-poor. There is absolutely no ways that the raising of the or the upgrading of the seawall on Sea Point has any impact on where the money is being spent in Khayelitsha. There is money being spent across the whole of the City of Cape Town. There is no ways that an entire caucus of councillors, and may I just remind that there is an ANC councillor, Khayelitsha, why are they not driving projects in their maybe as the Sea Point councillor is doing?
Yeah.
There really is.
Let's get Faiez to respond to that. Faiez, is it your councillor that is at fault here?
Look, the DA continues to blame others, and that's what they continue to do. The sad reality is that the lived experience on the Cape Flats, including coloured and African communities, remain that the DA doesn't care for them. They talk about pro-poor. It's ludicrous. They don't spend the money. I lost a cousin inside B because there was no CCTV, there's no lighting in that area. Now they continue blaming the police. They have been in charge of the Metro Police, they've been in charge of the MEC for Safety and Security. They have millions, if not billions, of budget under them. They continue to blame the police. Yes, in fact, police is under-resourced. But what we did, we created anti-crime fighters, community fighters like Bambanani, and work with the police. They killed that project. They don't want to work with communities. In fact, what the MEC used to do is covert with gangsters, is to create CCTV cameras elsewhere, but they don't prioritize. That's essentially what is happening on the Cape Flats. Yes, it's true. There's no lighting in Khayelitsha, or very few lighting. Our activists, our councillors only get a small budget. They get 800,000, and they have to prioritize the basic infrastructure. But the infrastructure of Sea Point and the infrastructure of Khayelitsha is not the same. So when we say that they must invest, it's clear they don't. And so they continue to reflect. It's under their watch that gangsterism and crime and hopelessness have continued to grow. The ANC have a plan, and we will ensure that we create safer communities for our people.
Right, let's go to Thulani Stewele. Thulani from the Good Political Party, you wanted to jump in on that?
You know, ANC has been having this plan, 25 years of democracy. We've been listening to the same plan. You know, they've been changing Fikile Mbalula as the minister, they've brought in Peggy back to the police. There's a new, every time they've got a plan to fix South Africa. When is the implementation of the plan? Because national government is their prerogative to bring up SAPs into our communities. One thing with the city of Cape Town in terms particular, JP Smith has got police services in Sea Point. If we can drive now to Sea Point, all the roads are full with the law enforcement. Why are we saying the same thing in Bondivo? Why is the same thing in Bishop Lavis? Why is the same thing in Hanover in Valhalla Park? You know what they've done? There's a housing issue. They're given to the drug dealers to say, carry on, do the great job that you were doing. Later when people suffer, when we carry on and being secured. So what we're saying that is, DA is capable of making our people to look, they've got nice grand pictures to put out for the world, but when it comes to the implementation, they've just been talking the same thing. They say there's a budget, we're pushing the budget to the communities. Look at my city, how did my city end up into the influent areas? You could see that they're driving, the mentality that they're driving, the Democratic Alliance, is to divide these communities. Because if they are safer on the other side of the wall, other side, they don't care. If they cared enough, they should have pushed a more law enforcement in the communities. They're less fortunate. They had received much more. They can give much more, but they refuse to do that.
Right, you raised my city, though my city is in not so affluent areas. I want to quickly, and you touched on the issue of transport, feel free to respond to that. But let's deal with transport, because one of your key policies for this year is around Metro Rail, saying that Metro Rail should be under the governance, or at least the operational command, of local or provincial government. How exactly would you do things different?
So I think very, very important. It's because it impacts on almost 1 million commuters, and it really hampers the ability for economic growth to happen if you don't have a functioning rail system that feeds into an economic growth strategy. So we want the City of Cape Town to be able to manage that rail system, which makes sense that they do. We know that that's going to take a number of years to get through, but we cannot continue having the rail system in the state of disrepair that it is at the moment. If you look, we used to have close to 1 million. I think at the moment not more than 200,000 people are using the rail only out of absolute no choice. At the end of the day, they're using taxis, which has congested our roads a lot. We need a functional rail system in order to have economic growth. But can I just go back to the cameras? I have got confirmation that there are 24 cameras working in Khayelitsha, so your information is correct. Cameras are around 100,000 to 250,000 rand each, and at least so far we've spent close to 10 million on cameras. So cameras do exist in Khayelitsha.
Faiez, on the railway system, I mean, if it's under national government, then it has failed.
Look, I think we must admit PRASA has failed us, but you'll see the president also launch new trains. What we have, the president has implemented that we will build trains ourselves instead of implementing or exporting it from elsewhere. That will create local jobs. So we have the president under the national ANC leadership have brought the first installment. So better trail is on cards. But you see the problem with DA's plan to provincialize everything. They can't even sort out the taxis. They are instrumental in creating the taxi violence because they're not mediating between taxi problems. Taxis remain the mainstay of public transport in the African and colored areas. They are giving some people permits and not. They are actively creating conditions for instability. They're not mediating. So start there. If you want to be a good governance, start there by sorting out the taxis because that's where our main people are coming. The national government is sorting out the rail. Just coming back to the lighting and the crime issue, it's under the President Cyril Ramaphosa that we have implemented the anti-gang unit, and we're seeing the direct results because of the failures in the Western Cape by the DA.
Right, we're in the swing of the game, debating politics at this time, a few days before the elections, having dealt with crime as well as issues around transport and a number of other issues. We're going to go for the break. Once we return, we take a look at the very tricky issue of land expropriation without compensation. Can it work in the Western Cape? How will it work? That and more shortly to follow. Do stay with us. In a matter of hours, South Africans go to the polls. We're dealing with a number of issues. The big political players in the Western Cape, the Democratic Alliance, the African National Congress, and the Good Political Party. In studio this evening is Faiez Jacobs for the African National Congress, Debbie Schafer for the Democratic Alliance. She's also a member of the provincial legislature. And from the Good Political Party is Thulani Stewele. I want to talk now very quickly to the issue of land expropriation without compensation. Faiez, I'd like to start off with you here. What exactly is land expropriation without compensation, and since the governing party has led this in Parliament, just fundamentally explain to me what this entails.
So in the past, we used to do what they called willing buyer, willing seller arrangement. What had happened was that people that had the land was now creating exorbitant prices. There was land speculation. So the land reform project that the ANC has had has not been accelerated fast enough. So now we have a clause which says if there's no agreement, we can actually expropriate land. And we as the ANC are saying that it must be done constitutionally, it must be within the means, and it also needs to ensure stability, especially for food security.
And whose land would this be that will be expropriated?
So at this stage, it's mainly pockets of public land that will be identified. It's land that is not utilized. And also, if there is areas where there's public good and it is in private hands, we will identify them.
But did Section 25 not already allow for that?
Yes, it did. But I think what we now to do is more explicit.
Yeah.
Because the valuation general also experienced a lot of problems where people buy land, like what we have in the city of Cape Town. They sell land for maybe 5 million to a white developer, and then the white developer sells it to national government, so there's speculation. And so we've picked up that people, instead of using land for people, for development, for opportunities, they use it for profit. And so we have 1 or 2 examples to that effect.
But public good is one aspect, right? How are we going to deal with, let's say, a Mr. Hussein, who used to live in Constantia, was thrown off the land, and the prospect of getting back that land almost seemed near impossible. How does this policy speak to redistribution and land reform?
Look, I think there is the process that's being opened. The process needs to be expedited. I think Mr. Hussein it should be, instead of just getting monetary compensation, because that was the problem. We only had monetary compensation. We are saying people must be returned to the land of their ancestors. So that must be accelerated, that program must be promoted. But more importantly, in the Western Cape, you have not only land problems, but you have an agricultural economy that's still largely in the hands of whites. So from seed implementation, from logistics, from the whole cold storage, everything, it's predominantly white. And Western Cape is at the fruit basket of the country. So we're saying that whole, not only land, but more importantly, agricultural must be changed.
Yeah. Okay, Beverly, what is the DA's understanding about this? I mean, do you think that I can come to your house and just expropriate it, put up my shack?
No, because we are functional democracy and we have a constitution. So where I agree with the ANC that it will only be a government land at this stage that will be looked at. And I've known for a fact that the President has vehemently said that agricultural land will be protected for the sake of food security in this country. And let me just put the statistics right. This province is the only province that has an external audit done on looking at how successful land reform projects that are implemented by national government with beneficiaries from national government, how we support those beneficiaries to actually be successful. And our stats, and they can be checked, and Africa Check has checked them and verified them, 72% success rate because of our support as a government and as a Department of Agriculture to the beneficiaries. I've been on a number, we've been involved with 357 land reform projects with over 500 million in support funding that we do because we understand that willing farmers, new emerging farmers, need that support system in order to become commercial farmers. Every year, the Western Cape leverages about 80 million rand in private sector backing for farmers operating on land reform projects. So farmers are very willing to actually look at land reform. Land reform has been stalled at a national level. I was recently with the President in Ebenezer, giving land title deed back to that land claim. I think we've only got a few more land claims, smaller land claims left in the Western Cape. Most of them are outside of the Western Cape, and those need to be dealt with. The speed at which land reform has been done in South Africa is abysmal, hence why there is so much hopelessness around land claims, because they just really haven't
the
been
problem with this
been
between
sorted
both
out.
the ANC and the DA is that you guys seem to be throwing the ball in each other's
Well, you've
courts
got to
here.
understand where the
Who
mandate
takes-
rides.
Let's use a case study here. District 6. Who takes responsibility
National
for
government.
that? Why has there been no movement on this phase?
Look, I think there is a process now. It is actually a competence of both national and provincial. So the DA continues to do the blame game. Mine is not to do that. We need to find a solution. I'm a product of District 6, so we need to find a solution. Yes, I think the national department is dragging their feet. We need a solution. I personally feel that this thing shouldn't go into court. There has been challenges where there needs an arbitration. The claimants in District 6 themselves are divided in terms of what they want there. So that also is a big problem, because the thing can't be resolved if there's fighting amongst community members within that area. But the ANC remains committed to find lasting solutions, like we did now with the fight against gentrification in Bucap. We're coming to District 6 as the ANC. We're going to mediate there, and we're going to find a lasting political solution, not only for the people of District 6, but like we did with Ebenezer when the President came and provided land. So we are committed to not blame and shift. We are committed to solve the people's problem.
Let's hear from Good. Thulani, what is your party's position on land expropriation without compensation?
You know, Section 25 already gives to us in terms of, I can tell you, under Patricia DeLille, we have given land in Constantia. One of the things Patricia was being punished by the DA is the land expropriation in terms of the Section 25. You know, we were going to build houses in Salt River and Woodstock. That project was being put on hold by the DA. So they cannot come and act here now as the saint gods, as if now we are protecting the Constitution. Remember, them and the ANC are singing the same thing. Now the ANC, when the EFF started to jump on the land with expropriation, they started wanting to jump. So you could see the wagon, DA in provincial government, they're still holding the land. You know the best place to build houses? It's in Philippi, it's Kells River for the middle class. Why not town? Why can we not bring people closer to the workplace so that people can live affordable housing? That should be the first question. Everybody now, after the elections, you will hear this command is going now very slow and very slower because they want to bring people closer to town. As the good party, what we are saying, we will bring people closer to the job market so that people are living class between 1.5 to 15,000 affordable houses in the CBD. Why is that an issue? Why are we prolonging the system when the people bring into town?
Okay, I want to quickly go back to Beverly. It's important to note that Conradie and those Conradie Hospital and the Salt River Woodstock site and the old Woodstock Hospital have been identified as sites. But I guess the point that he raises is, why is Sea Point not good enough? We know the controversy around Tafelberg High School. There was the foreshore project that led by Patricia de Lille as well that was completely canned in the city of Cape Town. Is the old Conradie Hospital the furthest, you know, people of color can go?
Well, maybe Patricia de Lille should ask for what her responsibility in that whole failed matter was, because she certainly was the mayor. And if she is, if the DA failed so abysmally where she was mayor, then we should ask the question why she didn't deliver as what she supposed to have delivered. So I think firstly the Conradie Hospital is going to be one of our big projects. It's a massive project. It's a mixed-use project, and it certainly is our better living model that we are showcasing going forward. We're really, really happy now that we've been able to turn the first sod. And I think really what we've got to understand is that, you know, you've got to understand also the value of the land. If for example, a developer wants to put a piece of a building in his, you know, in a suburb that has no mixed housing, we certainly ask our bigger developers to actually find an area of land that we can have mixed-use housing. Not all land is conducive to mixed use, and to have and to build affordable housing. It depends on the value of the land. I mean, I was part, when I was still a councillor in the city of Cape Town, part of the sod turning for the tramway project in Sea Point, one of the biggest land restitution projects. That project fell apart because the rates of the land was far too expensive, and unfortunately the beneficiaries eventually decided to sell the land to a developer.
The problem with that argument, and perhaps set me right, but the problem with that argument is that you guys are lawmakers. You can change the way the law works in respect of that. So why is that not an option?
What do you mean change the law in the respect of what?
In terms of what the property rates had demanded at the time. So if it is that, you know, exceptions can be made that regulates that, and especially the rates for that particular property that you said are the cause for the project falling apart, why is it that lawmakers of the DA can't come together to make it work?
Yeah, but general valuations sits at a national level. These are rates and taxes that are determined by the value of the land and the amount of properties that are sold in itself. I absolutely agree that we certainly need more inclusive housing in the CBD. But at the same time, there's not much land left in the CBD. There certainly are projects and pockets of projects, but how are we going to really create opportunity for everybody to have access to properties closer to their workplaces? And the question we must be asking ourselves, we need a proper working transport system. We need to make sure there's more inclusive housing across the city. In places, if you look at best practice across in Europe, in Germany, etc., you have mixed-use housing, you know, mixed in different suburbs. There's no difference that you'll have only affluent
So would you throw, in principle, despite, you know, I understand that matters of, you know, studies need to be conducted, feasibility, and so on and so forth. But would you throw on principle your weight behind Reclaim the City that wants to get rid of, I think it's a bowling ground or a golf course there in Sea Point?
No, I don't like the way that they operate. I mean, you can't go and put in trucks to bring in cement and bricks and start building and decide that you're going to now expropriate the land for your own business. That's not the way democracy works. That's not the way the law works in this country. We need to, that bowling green has been there, and there needs to be an application when there's a call put out by the City of Cape Town. You can't just just have trucks coming in and putting cement down on property that doesn't belong to you. That is against the law, and that should be dealt with.
Faiez, you want to jump in there?
As the ANC, we'll identify well-located land and see how we can use it for our people, especially our young families. A lot of young families wanting to start out, and they can afford, they start work, and they can afford mixed-use, well-located land. So we will do that. We will identify pockets of land, like golf
Is there
course.
land? I mean, Beverly is saying there is no land
No,
in the,
I
in
think
the inner city.
there's not a political will. The DA is talking this, but they've been in the city for 8 years. They have not one project to be proud of for integrated mixed-use development in. Other cities like Johannesburg have a very successful, low-cost, mixed-use, affordable housing, especially for young families in the inner city. I think there's not a political will. The ANC will identify, will have the political will. I just want to read some stats on the housing. The DA has not spent their housing development grant. I think it's a common cause that they failed to spend the infrastructure. They failed to spend their grant. I think that the figure is 1.7 million, which was meant for housing. They've returned to national treasury. When we were in power from 2004 to 2009, the ANC brought the N2 Gateway, other projects. What the DA has delivered, Blikkies Dorp. When the ANC was in power, we had 22,000 a year. The DA created 11,000 housing opportunities. The ANC reduced the waiting list to 400,000. The waiting list now is above 600,000. When the ANC gave title deeds to Boekap community, what the DA has done is increase gentrification, and the ANC has delivered on the heritage support for them. The ANC has continued to start integrated communities in all the dorpies and that. And in the last 8 years, the DA has started continuing with spatial apartheid.
Yeah.
They are continuing with that. So that's the legacy, the real legacy around housing.
I know Thulani wants to jump in, but I will quickly want your quick response to those stats, Beverly.
I think that's misinformation.
Are you underspending the grant
Absolutely
and why?
not, and we know that our Minister of Housing, Human Settlements wrote to the President for him to actually correct that piece of information, because that is an absolute lie. So can I tell you that we've exceeded our target for housing since 2014-15. We've spent 100%.
Before you go to your figures, the grant, have you underspent the grant?
Development grant was returned to national government.
It's an absolute misinformation, and we wrote to the President to correct his information. He was misinformed.
No.
He
We're
was
talking, there's a
misinformed.
housing budget and there is a grant, the urban development grant.
He does.
That's the amount that
Can you
back.
can you
We have
categorically
proof to
say
that
that?
effect.
I'm telling you now that I know that we have spent all allocated budgets and grants from national government in the provincial government, and they have done so. And we can certainly clear this up at the after the show, but certainly I stand by the fact that we've spent 100% of all our targets by the end of the current term. We've done 212,967 housing opportunities across the Western Cape. We must make sure that the information we put out on this show is correct and not misinformation.
All right.
That is not doing justice to anybody who wants to vote according to the facts.
Thulani Stewele.
You know, the first question was asked, does the CBD have pockets of land? Correct, it does have. I want to bring my close friend from the DA to say to her, go to the minutes of the council of the 25th of October 2018. You will see an item was removed out of council when Brett Harrowen identified sites within Woodstock, within Salt River. That item was removed by your councillor from Bonteville. The ward council of the area never removed the item, a councillor from Bonteville. You could see how the monopoly of the DA in terms of, they don't want to spend the funding to the communities. Go to anywhere, you will see the quality of houses they're building for the communities that we've got. It's absolutely no, but I tell you, a wardrobe won't fit in. You are given these matchboxes, they're not better from the ANC. Under Patricia de Lille, she has elevated the housing conditions. You can go to West Bank, you can go to Mfuleni. Under Patricia's leadership, we were developing, but what they've done, the DA refused to have Patricia in accessing where the majority poor are receiving things. So Debbie, she must go check her stats. They've never spent the funding. The funding was sent back to Treasury because they are incapable of spending the money closer to the people.
Right,
Can I
yeah,
just
go
come
for
in?
it.
And first of all, I find it so amazing that every one of the councillors that he's mentioned was a blue DA person operating, and Brett Heron was operating as MACO member. So if you're criticizing the DA now, but yet those very people that are wearing orange T-shirts were DA, why did you not make the change if you felt that there was such a big change to be made? And I really question the authenticity of what he's saying at the moment. You can't now sit with an orange T-shirt and say, well, when you were a blue T-shirt, you couldn't deliver. Well, why did you not deliver if you feel that that was a problem? Why is it such a big
Well,
problem
the
now?
argument is that they were pushed out because they were going in
That's
that
not
direction.
true. That's not true.
Do you, okay, Faiez, go for it.
You know, we've fought inside the DA. We have fought. The reason why we have left on a principle. If you're not going to deliver for our people, why should we sit and earn good salaries? People who have stayed in, it's okay for them. First of all, a woman was victimized in the DA. She has went to court, proven not guilty, but DA wanted to make sure Patricia DeLille do their own mandate. Tell you one thing, there was never day zero in the Western Cape. They've created day zero in the Western Cape. We've informed them of a day zero. Since where do you get the day zero from now? They all come up with these creative words so they can play with the publics. We won't allow them as the good party.
Yeah, right. But before Faiez go, because I know what you're going to, I just want to respond on the issue of the water crisis, the handling of the water
But before
crisis.
you go to the water crisis, I have a letter here sent on the 3rd of April 2019. Congratulations, motion of the National Assembly congratulating the Western Cape on achieving South Africa's highest access to healthcare, having completed over 200,000 housing opportunities since 2009. Here's the letter. Distribution of over 100,000 title deeds since 2009. We lead the South Africa on these achievements. These are the facts. This is what got, and it's got as I say, a proper parliamentary emblem on it. Can we recognize
it comes from the
that?
Speaker of Parliament.
Rather than state the
I want to stay with you very quickly, Beverly. I want a response on the water crisis. I mean, it arguably in Cape Town was one of the biggest issues that we had.
Absolutely.
And yes, the weather definitely at the center of this issue and climate change, but the handling of the crisis, many felt, was extremely problematic.
Well, again, there was a different mayor in this process. I think what's very important is that the communication of water. Look, it was a massive crisis that was heading our way, and that we had to do whatever it took to avert that crisis. Luckily, we managed to stretch the water usage out to the times that it would rain. But at the point of the matter is now, we are 6 years in a drought. I have parts of the Western Cape that have farmers and farm workers have no food, because the entire areas of Kanaland has been decimated by the most horrific drought. There is no water there. So we cannot underestimate that this was some conjured up statement made to create a reaction. There was a real crisis that we had to face. I think we did incredibly well under the circumstances. We averted day zero. We have still got low water levels. We're certainly hoping this winter is going to
Why are
have
you
rain.
making money off this crisis?
We're not making money off the crisis.
Of course you have. There were profits that shown based on the charge that was imposed on properties valued over R1 million, that the city of Cape Town made quite a bit of money on it.
I think what's important is that desalination, which is one of the first solutions proposed to avert the crisis. We had temporary desalination plants. Going forward, we are a much, much drier province. We're going to have to spend that money.
You've entered into those contracts, and those desalination plants are not operating at the moment.
No,
Are you wasting the money?
No, we're not wasting the money. We're going to have long-term solutions to water security and resilience by this city. There has to be a new spend on how we're going to make sure that water, we can't just rely on rainfall. So I certainly think that it needs to be a far bigger spend in terms of
Now, I
creating
get that, but at the
opportunities
moment
and
there are two
solutions.
desalination plants that are not running.
Yeah.
So did we waste the money?
No, we didn't waste the money.
Okay,
We
Faiez.
had to have contingency plans in place in order to avert a crisis.
Faiez, very quickly.
Look, I think you've seen, Cape Townians must see what they did with Patricia. So don't allow your vote to be used again by the Blue Party. We've seen they created the crisis, the water crisis. It is true. Let me give you the facts. The DA has scared us from day zero. We all were washing in komatis. Now, white people only started to wash under a komati now, but we used to know how to wash under komatis always. I'm still washing because we as poor people still save our water. What they did was they increased the water to 600%. They've made a profit, wait for it, of more than R1 billion. That's the stats that we have.
Yeah.
So whilst the poor have to suffer,
Yeah, sure.
they made the stats around it. So for us, it's untenable. The water crisis, we must punish the DA because they are punishing us with the water. We as the ANC are taking them to task. We've picked up all the water bills, the aunties, the elders that have this water, and we're busy with a class action so that we ensure that come after the elections that we'll scrap the arrears, we'll ensure that our people pay affordable rates, not
Sure.
the rates that we have now from the DA.
Right, we're certainly in business, people, and that is where we're going to have to leave this evening show. You get to make the important choice come May the 8th, 2 days from now. I guess really, it's a polarized matter, and you get to decide who exactly deserves your vote. Come after that election, the formation of governments, and it will be interesting to see how all of that come together. Thank you so very much for coming through to discuss the polls and what it would look like. From the team here at Democracy in Action, you have a very good evening, and thank you so very much for tuning in.